Hey guys, it's Sekaar, and today we're going to be going over my Stamina Dragonite for the Lost Depths chapter. Before we get started, if you guys aren't, I would really highly appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel. We just passed 2,500 subs, and I really want to see if we can get to 3,000 by the end of the year. So if you can do that, I would highly appreciate it, but no more talking. Let's get on with the video. Alright guys, let's get started. First things first, we're going to look at our character sheet. We're going to be an Imperial on our StamDK. I really like Imperial. It is the best class in my opinion as far as sustain goes because of that 6% reduced cost passive on all of your abilities. So I just really like Imperial on this. If you don't have Imperial, because it is it is the only race that you actually have to buy extra from the base game, I will go either Orc or Wood Elf on this build if I were you. Just look them up, and I definitely recommend just make an educated decision on whichever one looks better to you. But I really think that Imperial is the best way to go on this. Our stamina, we're gonna have 64 points in our attributes and stamina. And this is going to give us a nice chunky health pool of 30.5k, max stamina of 25.7k, and our max magic at 17.1. Our Mundus Stone is going to be the Warrior. This is going to help us get our weapon damage as high as possible. We're going to be using Orzorga's Smoked Bear Haunch as our food. I know this is very expensive, but I really think it's worth it. If you can't afford this, there is also another food that's very similar to this, just a little bit of less max health. It is called Jewels of Misrule. I definitely recommend checking it out. But Orzorga's is going to give you 4.3k max health with 369 stamina and magic recovery. And I definitely recommend using this. It is really helpful for your sustain. We're also going to be Vampire Stage 3 on this. This is going to increase our tankiness on this build. We are going to be able to get that Undeath passive from Vampire, and it is going to give us, as you get lower health, you take less damage, so you really get a lot of tankiness from this. Let's move on to our gear. On this, our monster set is going to be Bloodspawn. Our helmet is going to be heavy in the reinforced trait. What Bloodspawn does is you get 1 piece stamina recovery from this, and you get, for the 2 piece, you get, whenever you take damage, you have a 6% chance to generate 13 ultimate and increase your physical and spell resistance by 3,700 for 5 seconds, and it can occur every 5 seconds. So this helps you gain ultimate a lot faster, and you become a lot tankier. So I definitely recommend using Bloodspawn on this build. So if we look over it again, we're going to be using heavy Bloodspawn on our helmet in the reinforced trait. Our shoulder is going to be medium in the impenetrable trait. And as you can see, all of our body pieces are going to have prismatic enchant on it. It is really helpful to increase our max health, stam, and magic as much as possible with that. And then our next set is going to be a heavy chest of Deja Chicory and Reinforced. This is going to give you a line of max health, a line of max stamina, a line of max magic, and when the 5 piece is when you deal damage, you gain 1 of 5 random major buffs for 21 seconds for every 9 seconds. And the eligible buffs are Major Expedition, Major Protection, Major Mending, Major Heroism, or Major Vitality. So this is a great way to increase your speed or your resistances or even your alt gen. So I really like it. I definitely recommend using this on your back bar because we have some dots on this build. If you use dots on your front bar, then you switch to your back bar, it counts for your Deja Trickery proc, so definitely use that. Our waist piece is going to be a medium piece of Trainee in Impen. We have 1 extra slot on this build, so use Trainee to get that max health as much as possible. As you can see in that 1 piece, you get 1.4k max health. Our hands are going to be medium Plague Break in Impen. This is going to be your front bar set, while Deja Trickery is your back bar set. Plague Break is going to give you a line of offensive pen. The 3 and 4 piece is going to give you weapon and spell damage, and the 5 piece is you put a dot on an enemy, and if they die with the dot or if they purge it, that dot explodes and it does more damage for the more people that they hit. So I really like Plague Break for this. It's really good for fighting outnumbered, and I really think that it's still viable even after the nerf. I really like it, and it's still my favorite stamina set to use on a DK. So medium Plague Break in Impen for your hands. And then moving on, we're going to be having our heavy legs be Deja Trickery and Reinforced. Our feet are going to be medium Deja Trickery in Impen. our jewelry, we're going to have our 2 rings both be Plague Break in the Swift trait, both with weapon damage enchants on them. And then we are going to be using as our mythic on this build, Sea Serpent's Coil. What Sea Serpent's does is, while at full health, you gain 40% damage reduction. After taking damage while at full health in combat, you gain Serpent's Rebuke for 10 seconds, so you snare yourself for 40%, but you gain Major Berserk and Major Courage, so you increase your damage a lot. And the best way to counteract that snare is we are going triple swift on our jewelry. So that is why we have triple swift on there. It counteracts that snare, and I definitely recommend using that. Our front bar is going to be a Plague Break Greatsword in the Nirnhone trait with a weapon and spell damage increase enchant. I really like the Greatsword in Nirnhone on this, but I like to leap a lot. So if I end up noticing that I leap more on this build, then I use Corrosive. I would switch to a Plague Break Maul and Sharpened, but since we're using Corrosive a lot on this build as well, we don't need that extra bit of pen. We can just build into weapon damage, so I really like this for DK. Our back bar is going to be Deja Trickery Dagger in the Power trait. Our shield is going to be Deja Trickery with the Sturdy trait. I really like Sturdy and Powered. It increases your healing and increases the amount you block, so that's why I use both of those. Onto our skills, our front bar is going to be, we're going to be using Molten Whip as our main spammable, but you don't really use it as a spammable. I'll explain in a second. So you get a stack of Seething Fury every time you use an ability from the, from the Ardent Flame tree. So the Ardent Flame tree also includes Noxious Breath and Venomous Claw right here. So you get a stack every time you use one of those. And so on that third stack, it makes your Molten Whip hit a lot harder. And I definitely like how it feels. The hybridization of the cost is a little wonky, but it still hits really hard. And those 3-stack whips still hit really, really, really hard. I really like that. And so we're using Noxious Breath as a good spammable, as a good AoE spammable. But on top of that, we also put our enemies under Major Breach. So it lowers your enemy's physical and spell resistance by 6k. You're going to be using Rally on this build. It's a nice source of Major Brutality and Minor Endurance. So you're going to be increasing your weapon and spell damage by 20%. And you're going to be increasing your stamina recovery by 15% for 20 seconds. So that's huge. It's going to really help your damage and your sustain. And then it also gives you a nice chunky heal when the effect expires or later on in the effect if you reapply it. Venomous Claw, I know it's not hitting nearly as hard as it used to. I know it's kind of a shell of its former self, but I still like it. It puts a little bit of pressure on your enemies, and I definitely like being able to use that to be able to proc my Seething Fury stacks. So I still like Venomous Claw, but I'm still looking as a ways to replace it, but this is what I'm going with for now. Executioner, this is going to be your execute on this build. When your enemies are at low health, this is a great way to secure that kill. Take Flight, this is the highest tooltip ultimate in the game. We are at 16.8k on this, and we're not even buffed up. We don't even have our Sea Serpents buff up. We don't have our Rally buff up. So this gets to over 20k when we're fully buffed up, and I really, really, really like it. On our back bar, our abilities are going to be Cinderstorm. This is a great heal that you can use, but on top of that, it's also a snare for your enemies. So it's a nice way to really take control of the fight, and being able to fight around that is a great way to just make sure that you're in control at all times. And like I said, it's a really good heal, and it is a great source of sustain as well, because it is a very cheap costing ability, and by using this, you gain 1,000 stamina due to one of the DK passes. So I definitely like this for both a heal, a way to control the fight, and a way to keep your sustain up if you use it properly. Race Against Time. Since we're using Sea Serpents, we need to be fast. So this is going to give you a source of major expedition. But on top of that, the more important part is it removes all snares, and it grades your snare immunity for 4 seconds. So that's huge. Resolving Vigor, that is absolutely needed this patch on almost all builds because of the chunky heal that you get. And on top of that, you gain Minor Resolve, so you increase your physical and spell resistance by 3k for 20 seconds. And then if we look at that, if we just think about that for 2 seconds, we're also using Volatile Armor as our source of Major Resolve, so it's going to increase our physical and spell resistance by 6k for 20 seconds. So Volatile Armor and Resolving Vigor, you're increasing your resistances by basically 9k. Then on top of that, we're also using Blood Spawn, which is going to be increasing our resistance by 3.7k. So you're increasing your resistances just by being on this build by about, what is that, 12k, 13k? That's huge. That's massive. And it also puts a nice dot on the enemy too. But that's really not necessary. Anyways, we're moving on. Coagulating Blood. This is a really good heal when you're at lower health. Don't spam this when you have when you're at like 80% health or like 70% health. When you get to about below 70% and your Resolving Vigor isn't the only heal that's going to help you anymore, definitely start using Coag. And then our back bar ultimate, we're going to be using Corrosive. Corrosive is one of the best ultimates in the game, if not the best ultimate in the game. You become insanely tanky by only taking 3% of your max health as damage. And then on top of that, you're also ignoring your enemy's physical and spell resistance. So it doesn't matter how much they build into. If you're hitting them, you're hitting them hard. So I definitely like Corrosive for this build too. And then finally, our champion points. Our blue slottables are going to break down like this. We're going to be using Deadly Aim, Ironclad, Master at Arms, Focus Mending. Our red slottables are Sustained by Suffering, Survival Instincts, Celerity, and Pain's Refuge. And then the only CP that matters in the green tree are Rationer right here, Liquid Efficiency right here, and Breakfall right here. Alright guys, that is everything with this build. I really hope you guys enjoyed. I really like this build so far. It is the most viable StamDK build I've found so far this patch. I hope that you guys enjoy. If you haven't yet and you're still watching the video, thank you guys for being here. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not. I really want to get to 3K by the end of the year. It's a goal that I've planned for myself. So I hope that you guys can help me out with this. I really appreciate you guys being here, but I'm not going to talk anymore. That's it for me. If you want to see this build live in action, you can catch me live at twitch.tv/Sekaar, where I stream 5 days a week. And it's where I test out builds like this. So guys, we are done here. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys on the next video. Later.